If anybody can send me the link of that, I'd like to watch it.
We're live on YouTube now, Chair.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee of the 15th of February 2021. First item on the agenda this evening are apologies. I've had apologies from Councillor Aziz, and I know a couple of councillors need to leave the meeting early this evening. Any other apologies you noted?
No, there's no more.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda this evening.
Hang on, Jeremy. Can you see me? Graham Walker was struggling to get in, so he gives his apologies.
Okay, thanks, Andy. So we'll put down Councillor Walker's apologies. Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting have been circulated of the meeting held on the 11th of January 2021. Can we approve those minutes? Agreed. Thank you. Just as a point here, you'll be aware that we haven't been in the council chamber now for 11 months. And what's going to happen tomorrow, I believe, is that the minutes are going to be sent out to me to sign at home and then me to return to the Guildhall, so that the Guildhall do have a signature on their records of the minutes for the last 12 months. Any deputations or public addresses?
No, we have none.
Okay, thank you very much, Tracy. Declaration of interest. Anybody have any declarations of interest on tonight's agenda?
Councillor Kilbride is indicating.
Thank you, Andy.
I'm an MPH board member, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Smith is indicating also.
Zoe?
Likewise, Chair, member of MPH.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, on that note, we'll move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the NPH, Northampton Partnership Homes and Affordable Housing. And I'm going to hand over to Mike Kay and Stephen Hibbett to present their report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Stephen, are you happy if I present it?
Yes, of course, Mike. It's your report anyway. You go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Chairman, you asked me to actually produce what's really a briefing rather than a scrutiny piece. I'm going to assume that everyone's read the paper, so I'll just canter through a few key aspects of it, and then throw open to any questions anybody may have. So what the paper does is provide a briefing on affordable housing throughout the borough. It's predominantly about the stock which is owned by NBC and managed by MPH, and clearly that's the majority of the stock. There are, however, other housing associations who do own stock and have stock within the borough, and of course they can therefore take people from the waiting list as well. So I've also provided you a list of the key ones that have the majority of the stock. That's not complete and exclusive. There are one or two other organisations. So for instance, I know Hyde Housing have some, but we're not privy to the total numbers they've got there. On page 2, I've given you a complete list as of the 1st of January. Now, I appreciate the numbers do fluctuate all the time with right to buys and with us acquiring new properties for the council and building new properties now. So I've taken the base date 1st of January and all the stats are based on that. You'll see as of the 1st of January, we had a total stock of 11,400 properties. They're a complete mixture from 1 beds right up to 5 beds, but you've got the breakdown there as well. In addition to that, on page 3, I've listed or shown you the other types of properties which are also owned by the borough, which we manage. So there's a number of leaseholder properties there, because of course the borough own the fabric, the shell of the building, garages, and things like travellers' sites, which we manage as well. It's all really accommodation. In terms of housing then, that's what we have in the supply. The other side of the equation clearly is the housing demand. And that's one of the key reasons why we've got a large housing programme at the moment to build new properties. As again of the 1st of January, you had 2,557 people on that housing waiting list. As I'm sure all members are aware, they are split into a number of priority bandings. So I've indicated the bandings there for you as well, from emergencies right through to the reduced priority. And of course, allocations are generally based upon the priority need that are given to each of the applicants. Over on page 8 on your papers there, you'll see the size of properties that people are bidding for. Those are based upon their need criteria, what they've been able to substantiate in their applications. So you'll see the complete breakdown adding to a total of 2,557, and the bands that they're actually sitting from the emergency right through to the reduced banding priority. So that's the key sort of two aspects. That's the number of stock we've got, the breakdown of the stock, and then a bit more information on the current housing demand and waiting list. I'll pause there, Chairman, if that's okay. I think that's just a quick high-level summary, and very happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, Mike. Yeah, any questions to Mike on his report?
Nobody appears to be in. Oh, Councillor Roberts is indicating, Chair, and Councillor Russell.
Yeah, I saw Councillor Russell first, so go to Councillor Russell and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation and the information, Mike. It's quite clear and easy to understand, and I appreciate that. The emergency numbers here, 462 under your emergency column on page 8. I'm assuming these are people who get the priority when property does become available. I don't know how long they've been on a waiting list. That would have been quite interesting to know. But there's 25 here who are unknown. What does that definition mean? Hello?
Mike, I think you're still on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. When somebody applies to go on the waiting list, there's quite a number of criteria and supporting information they need to provide. Until that information's been provided, they can be accepted, but they won't be given a banding until all the supporting documentation has come through. So what that will probably be is they're waiting for that documentation to come through, which will then confirm the banding. So it's just a case of being probably accepted as a need, but the finer detail or substantiation is still awaited.
Can I just have a quick supplementary, please, which is 2,500 people. How has that figure changed over the last year to 18 months? Or has it changed?
It has changed, and it changes significantly from any period of time.
Yeah.
So every application should be reviewed at certain intervals. So when you apply to go on the waiting list, you have 28 days to provide the supporting information. If no supporting information is provided, you're taken off the list and you have to reapply. So the numbers will fluctuate from applications, and then there's a large number never provide the supporting information. Again, every 12 months, and it's a rolling 12 months, it's not just done every 12 months, this is a continuous refresh we will do. Within 12 months of you applying and going on the list, if you do not bid for a property, you should be removed from the list as you've not substantiated you're still in need. So the numbers will fluctuate. If somebody's on the list and they've been there for over 12 months and never bid for any stock, again, they will come off. So they can fluctuate quite significantly. If I was to go back 18 months, that list was not being updated on a regular basis. We now updated it very regularly. So it will change and it will fluctuate, but by a smaller number these days. So historically, it could change when you do a 6-monthly review. You may find over 1,000 come off, but then it builds up over time. What we try and do now is keep on top of it, review it on a sort of weekly or monthly basis, so the numbers don't fluctuate hugely.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Roberts, can I ask your question, please?
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Mike, for the report. Just a couple of questions. Councillor Russell asked one of them, and you've answered that partially. On those numbers in the unknown brackets, we've got 258 in urgent need. So they've obviously been categorised as urgent need, but perhaps not yet produced a documentation that supports that categorisation. My worry, I think, would be how long those 258 people, that's a lot of people in urgent need who haven't yet gone through the appropriate process, and whether we've got steps in place to make sure that those people do go through that process as quickly as they possibly can. And then the second question was around the 2,500 we've got there. Are we doing enough to even eat into that waiting list at all, as far as housing is concerned?
Okay, well, first one is to reassure you that we have a support team who provide that need and support and follow up and chase people. So they're not just left to be knocked off the list after 28 days, not providing anything. There is a support team, there is advice there, provided both by the borough and by NBC. So as and when we will try and help people, but at the end of the day, it's down to them to provide that information. As far as the waiting list is concerned, probably for the first time in certainly MPH's history, and I think for some considerable time, we're now starting to make some inroads into the waiting list. So I think it's fair to say 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, we started a house building programme. We've now built over 220 properties, which is all added to the stock. We've now got a programme the next 3 years, we'll be building around 650. We've got over 230 properties actually on site under construction at the moment. We've got another 200 about to be let in contracts. So we've got a large new build programme following through. For the first time, therefore, we can start to try and nibble away at that list. We've also, with the borough and with Phil Harris's team, we've got an acquisition programme. So we're looking at street property acquisitions. The council have come up with another £10 million of funding to acquire those street properties, and all those add to the number of stock that we've got that we can provide to try and house those people. So we're probably in a stronger position now in terms of meeting that demand than we have been probably for about a decade.
Lovely, thank you, Mike. Any further questions?
Councillor Ashraf and Councillor Meredith.
Councillor Ashraf, want to ask your question, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair, through you. Mike, thank you for your report, well-informed report. If you go to page 8 of the report, where it says applicants in statutory categories, and the last box where it mentions medical, welfare or disability grounds, 546, is that 546 people or properties that's been adapted?
It's properties that's been adapted, so it's applications and properties.
Okay,
so it
thank
wouldn't be
you.
individuals, it could be family households, whether that's an individual
Okay.
or a family household.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Meredith, do you want to ask your question, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mike, for your report. It's quite useful for me to keep this report, because when residents get in touch with me, then I can refer to them from your report if I've got any questions that I can't answer. So it's quite constructive. I picked up, Mike, on what you said about people on the waiting list, if they don't bid for 12 weeks, for a year, then they will be taken off of the list. Now, I was wondering whether these the people on the waiting list are aware that they can be taken off the list if they don't bid for properties. It has said to me before, some of my residents have told me they've just been taken off the list and they didn't know why they was taken off the list.
The majority of occasions they are contacted, not on every occasion, but generally they are contacted. In terms of bidding, we can have properties where we can have anything up to 200 people bidding for a single property. If you've got somebody who has not bid for 12 months, what it normally is doing is demonstrating to us that they're not in the same need as what other people on the list who are actively bidding are. So, you know, we will have applicants who bid every single week for a number of different properties, not necessarily just one property. So, you know, if they're really in need, they are actively bidding. If they haven't bid for 12 months, quite often their circumstances have changed as well, and therefore they would need to update their application. So not on every occasion, no, they wouldn't be contacted every time. Sometimes they can be, they'll be chased quite regularly to say they haven't bid, are they still in need? Do they need to bid? Do they want to bid? And if not, they can withdraw their application. So it isn't hard and fast that they're contacted before they're removed, but they do have that opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have a supplementary, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
Yeah, I'm still a bit concerned, Mike, because I wasn't aware that if you didn't bid, for a year, then you was taken off the list. And I think a lot of people who are on the waiting list wouldn't know they had to bid. And I think this should be made a bit more clearer to people, especially when they come on the waiting list, or they're allowed to come on the waiting list. They should be notified and say, if you don't bid within 12 months, then you'll be taken off the list. It has arrived to me that people didn't know that they was taken off the list. They just said, well, we haven't got a chance. So I think, Mike, you're going to have to look into that and rectify it, because it is confusing.
Chairman, if I may respond to that. I mean, first and foremost, when they do apply, it is made clear that if they don't bid within 12 months, they can be removed. But clearly, I think if somebody's been on for a period of time, haven't bid, then that's possibly not something that they would always remember. So I think doing a reminder, refresher on the website, so it's clear that on the bidding cycles, if they don't bid, that they can be removed after 12 months, is certainly something we'll look into, because I think that's something positive to help them, to remind them. So we'll take that away and we'll look into that. And again, it's really down to them to bid. The onus has got to be on the individual at the end of the day to identify. And if they are in the true need, the majority of them, if not every one of them, will bid.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your report, Mike, and for your responses. Before you go, can I just thank you for all the support you've given to Overview Scrutiny over the years. You have been very supportive of it, and you've never turned down a request for information. So thank you very much for your help over the years. Thank you, Mike.
You're very welcome, Chair. Can I just say that Councillor Duffy's got a hand up?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Duffy, didn't see that.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for that. I'm just wondering who pays for the armed forces housing. Is it the armed forces or is it MPH? There's 9 applicants.
When you say who pays for it, do you mean who pays the rent?
Yes, and the upkeep, the maintenance.
As far as the maintenance and upkeep is concerned, they're treated the same as every other property owned by the Borough Council. So MPH undertake the repairs, undertake all the servicing, the compliance work to make sure the properties are safe and kept in good order, and any reinvestment. So MPH manage and deliver that on behalf of the council, and that's the council's budgets. The budgets, of course, come from the housing revenue account, which comes from the tenants' rents in the first place. So it's all very circular, it's reinvested from their rents. Where does their rent come from? Who pays it? That can be a number of different factors. So it's all it's dependent upon the personal circumstances of the individual tenant. So if they're perhaps in work, they've got employment, they will probably be paying it themselves. If they're not, they may be applying for partial housing benefit or full housing benefit or universal credit. So there's a variety of different ways the rent can be paid.
Okay. Thank you for that. I won't repeat but thank you very much.
You're welcome, Chair. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay then, so item 6 on the agenda is the update on the housing acquisition scheme, and I'll hand over to Councillor Hibbett and Phil for this. The report's in front of you. Item number 7.
Councillor Hibbett, do you want me to lead on this one?
Yes, again, Phil, you can, although it's
sorry, item 6. Sorry, I've got more paperwork confused. It's item 6 on the agenda.
Okay.
But, Stephen.
Okay, Stephen.
Did you not hear me? Sorry. Did you not hear me? I said the report is fairly detailed. I've got no objection if Chair, you want to go straight to questions.
Okay, yeah. Any questions then on agenda item 6? Let's see then.
Councillor Roberts is indicating, Chair.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. I just wondered whether or not we've made any progress with any 4-bedroom properties, given that we talked previously about that being a significant need. And there is a lot of detail in the report. Really do appreciate that. It's really helpful, again, Phil, when you do that. But yeah, any progress on 4-bed properties?
we've tried. We've tried on 2 properties, 2 4-bedroom properties recently. One of the vendors chose to sell for a higher amount to a developer to turn it into an HMO. But the second one we're still in discussions with. Obviously, what we've got to do is to offer the valuation, which may or may not be as much as they can get on the open market. But we have focused. We've had more success with the smaller properties than we have with 4 beds. But if one comes up, we're looking at the websites all the time, and obviously we've got opportunities sometimes when they're selling back to the council. So we're still active on that. If I can give an update since the report, we referred to the number of properties as of the 2nd of February. The current figure we're dealing with at the moment, there are 23 properties in the pipeline. 16 of those are 1 beds, 5 are 2 beds, and 2 are 3 beds. We've completed the purchase of 4 properties, including 1 2-bedroom. We've got solicitors working with us on 16 properties, including 11 1 beds, 3 2 beds, and 2 3 beds. So we're starting to move on. We have 16 properties that are 1 bedroom that we're in the process of purchasing for Rough Sleepers. We're pushing on quite fast now with those properties. Yep.
Thank you. Any further questions on the report?
Nobody else appears to be indicating, Chair.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. In that case, then we will move on to item 7, which is the Cabinet responses to overview and scrutiny reports. And can I thank you, first of all, for your speedy response to these recommendations. So the first one is on the food poverty, and I'll hand over to Councillor King and Geraldine, who are going to take us through what's happened so far. Thank you.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
King, would you like me to?
You go, Jerry.
Do you want me to run through them? Thank you. So yeah, there has been an awful lot of action ongoing, a lot of it on the back of COVID. These include the creation of the West Northam Sustainable Food Place. They've done an awful lot of work to increase food provision throughout Northampton, and also to improve the food provision within Northampton, but also the quality of the food. So they're working in partnership with many of the other volunteering agencies, local councils. So Vicky, who's with us today, is also on that group. A lot of the work they've done very quickly includes, and I've done a link to it for you on the report, but also includes the food directory. So that identifies all of the food provision within Northampton, where you can find that food provision and when it's available. It also has a lot of the work they've done has identified the need within Northampton and also some of the gaps. And they're doing a lot of work to fill those gaps within Northampton. So I've put quite a lot of information on the report with regards to that, so I won't go into that in detail. But in addition to that, the Winter Grant Scheme, which I'm sure you're all aware of, which is 750,000 from the Winter Grant Scheme was allocated to schools, and 350,000 has been spent on the Winter Grant Scheme. 91,000 has been allocated to residents in Northampton. Now we're receiving them within customer services, and over the weekend alone, we received 120 applications. So we're really starting to see an increase in those applications coming through. We're working in partnership with Northampton Partnership Homes. Since the scheme went live, they have put in 350 applications. Also, our benefits team, revenues and benefits, and customer services, and our community engagement team as well. So we've got a lot of partnership working within Northampton that are available to submit those winter grant schemes, which is going really well. I've done a lot of work with Jo Barrett from the Unitary. She's the Unitary lead on poverty. So I've sent her over the report. So she is definitely prioritising the strategy work that needs to be done on the back of the Unitary work. Again, Vicky's part of that group. And then I think just in summary, I've been doing quite a lot of work with Northampton Partnership Homes and also Department of Work and Pensions to promote many of the schemes, including Universal Credit, the Healthy Start vouchers, and Northampton Partnership Homes have got their magazine going out in April. So they're doing a lot of work around trying to identify people that are not claiming benefits, that should be claiming benefits, and also a lot of work around the food bank that they've got available, and really trying to identify people that are, you know, living in poverty and finding things very difficult at the moment. So they're doing a article at the moment, which will be going out in April. The Department of Work and Pensions are also doing a newsletter, which also goes out in April, and they're going to be promoting the Healthy Start vouchers in that as well. The Deferral Grant, so there's 300,000 that was available to food banks. I think there's another tranche happening on that as well, which is, I think, in February, so probably now. And that's probably summing it up. Northampton Partnership Homes have 2 dedicated financial inclusion officers, and their main responsibility, as I say, is really trying to help people who have experienced who are experiencing difficulty financially. I've also sent this report over to them, so they're working in partnership with me on some of those recommendations as well. Any questions?
Councillor Russell, you have a question?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation, Geraldine. I understand that some people's benefits some people need to reapply or renew their benefit applications in April. Can you tell me who's responsible for ensuring that people who need to do this are made aware, and in a form of reminder to make sure that people don't miss out on their benefits?
Can I ask Councillor Russell, on what reason would they need to renew their benefits?
I think if their circumstances change, or if they're needing another strand of benefit.
Right, okay. So if their circumstances change, they get a regular update on their journal. So when they claim in the Universal Credit, they'll get a regular update to say, have your circumstances changed? Is this information the same? So they should be notified to change their circumstances if they have had a change at all. When they receive their annual bill, which will be going out in the second week of March. There's also a notification on that with regards to their benefits, asking if anything has changed around council tax reduction scheme or their housing benefit. So there should be a reminder coming out the second week of March, but also on their journal, they get repeat reminders throughout the year.
And is the person they need, or the agency they need to contact to do that, made quite clear to them? Is it quite easy for them to do that?
Yeah, it is all online. So it's a very quick and easy form. There also is a note within that if they are unable to use the digital platform, that there is a dedicated citizens advice number. So there's a dedicated team within Citizens Advice. So if any of your constituents are in need of universal credit and haven't got the facilities to do it online, or they struggle to do it online, there is a dedicated Citizens Advice team available to support them.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions on the report?
There's 3. Councillor Meredith, Councillor Roberts and Councillor Smith.
Okay, go to Councillor Meredith first, as you chaired the report, didn't you?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I want to say a big thank you to Geraldine. I've been through the list of what is happening on the food poverty, and it's really good. I also like to thank the Cabinet for their input in taking this to the relevant officers to take up our challenges and our recommendations. I see there's lots and lots of work still going on, and in my opinion, it will be going on, and it won't be ended, because this is a very serious and a worrying state for food poverty around Northampton. I'm pleased that it's now gone to West here, the unitary. I'm hoping that they have read the report, and that when we next have a meeting, they possibly would comment on that. The other thing I think, I know that there's £91,000 is being allocated to Northampton residents from the county to help across the county. I mean, that is an excellent amount. The other thing, what I want to point out, I have not had any response, and I don't think Tracy's had any response from the MPs on their sending their comments about this report. And I was wondering, Jamie, if I may call you Jamie on this, if you could do a lead on this in asking them to send their answers to Geraldine or yourself or myself. We need to know what our MPs are actually thinking, and are they aware about the amount, I dare say they would be, about the amount of poverty which is in this country. So once again, I'll sum up. I'm very, very pleased what is happening. It's a good report that we've received here. And keep up the good work, Geraldine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Dennis, the MPs have been sent the report. It's been emailed to them. If we get any responses from them, or when we get responses from them, I'll forward them on so you can see them.
Yeah, thank you. That would be useful. Yeah, thank you.
Geraldine, did you want to add anything to that?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Sorry, mouse wouldn't move quick enough then. Thanks, Geraldine, as always, for the work that's been done, and I appreciate the significant work that has been done in the short period. I've just got a couple of points around sort of the mapping exercises have been done. I've been involved in the mapping exercise with the Food Aid Alliance, which is actually who's created that, and I think it's important to contribute that work to those individual food banks that have put that together, and it's important that's made aware when we take credit for a particular item here. The Food Aid Alliance has put that together, and that will need to be continued to be updated. So it isn't a moving directory. It's finished as it is at the moment, and there will need to be some work to do that. Having worked with the Food Aid Alliance, I know that they're committed to try and do that, but they've obviously got a lot going on as well, and they're trying to get food out to people at the same time. So I think we just, as a borough, for the time that we've got left, need to try and make sure that we support that, and if there's anything that we can do to keep that directory updated, then we should do that. The second question I've got is around the amount of the winter grant scheme. Do we know how much is left, and what will happen with that? So I appreciate 350 has been spent on the grant scheme, 91,000 in Northampton. How much is left in the pot, and what are we doing to make sure that's getting out to people? And then there's a lot of detail around the Deferral Grant and the funding. Again, I've been involved in that quite closely with the Food Aid Alliance as well. So I appreciate how it's working and what wonderful work it's done so far. But there's nothing in here that talks about what we're going to do next. And there isn't, although I am told that there's likely to be some more, but there isn't any more future funding at the moment. And all of a sudden, when that stops, there's going to be a huge gap in that provision. and we need to understand what we're going to do next. And I know that, again, I appreciate that's difficult because we're moving into the unitary authority and that's not necessarily within your control. Isn't a criticism of you, Geraldine, nor Vicky, or anybody else that's worked really hard on getting that funding out to people. But what are we going to do next? And can we make sure that that line, what are we going to do next, features in everything we pass on to the unitary authority? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Can I respond, Chair?
Yes, please, Geraldine.
Thank you. So with regards to how much left in the winter grant, I do not know. I know that I had a meeting with Northampton County Council on Friday, and I know they've definitely had an increase in the application. So I can definitely find that information out, unless, Vicky, are you aware of the amount left?
I don't know the up-to-date amount left, but I know the last conversation that I had with Tyler, because I raised the question too. At one point, we were concerned that there was going to be funding left in that pot. And the question was, we don't want to send any back to the Home Office. So what are we going to do with it? The answer to that was that the amount that's been top sliced for the schools, the 750,000 for the half-term provision, that we would seek to split that to the families that were receiving that funding if there was anything left, so that we weren't in a position to send any back. However, the number of referrals that have been coming into that grant pot, there isn't going to be anything left. It was the last conversation that I had with Tyler, so he's pretty confident that every penny is going to get spent.
Thank you for that, Vicky. That's really helpful. I'm just going to chuck in a quick supplementary on there if I can, because that's great that it's being used, but it's also slightly worrying based on what I just said a moment ago about what we're going to do next. So if it is being eaten up, even more important, did they talk to you about any other streams or anything that you can divulge at the moment?
Yes, no. So there's at the moment, we're not aware of any further funding that's been confirmed as yet. There are various COVID pots that have obviously come down. So, you know, we did raise the question that if we run out, we need to be looking at what other funds we can, you know, that we might be able to look at to top that funding pot up. But nationally, no, not aware of any other pots. But you know, you raise a really good point, and it's the same with the DEFRA funding. You know, we have got a fourth tranche, but you know, we have seen you know, and applications coming in from food providers that are going to fully spend that funding, that DEFRA funding. So what happens next? Because as you say, you know, there is potentially going to be a really big gap there. So yeah, they're all valid points, and I took a note of the statement to keep asking the question, and we'll continue to do that.
Thanks, Vicky. I appreciate the work you do. Sorry, Geraldine, I cut in on you there, so thank you.
No, that's fine. I think Vicky's covered that. I was going on to the Deferral Grant, but Vicky's covered that. And again, we will be in continuous communication with the lead of Unitary. So this report won't end. We will continue that communication.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Roberts' points, really along similar lines. Thinking about the winter grant scheme, the other thing I'd be quite interested to know is how 91,000 was the figure arrived at for Northampton, whether that's based on population or understanding of people in need, or sort of a combination of the two. And I'd be quite interested to know how Northampton's funding compares with the other areas in the county, because this has been allocated to the county and we're obviously moving into being a unitary authority that combines Northampton, South Northants and Daventry. And it would be, I think, the way that it's been allocated will need to inform what happens in terms of West Northants, and there needs to be a shift in national thinking into giving the amount of money that's right for West Northants, with Northampton as that huge place in it, and knowing what we know about the kind of need there. And also then following up on Councillor Roberts' point about there needs to be more money coming in if it's all being spent, about how that case is going to be made when we're a different authority.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Again, Vicky, can I bring you in with regards to the amount allocated? So the 91,000 that was allocated to Northampton residents, was that on the back of the applications?
Yeah. So that figure is just what's being spent, and that figure will be out of date because the applications are coming in so quickly. That won't be today's figure. That figure will be higher than that. In terms of so there is an amount allocated to Northampton. There's an amount allocated to the county. So that figure is just based on the number of applications received. So I do know that Northampton's faring well in terms of numbers of applications that are coming into that scheme. So I know Jerry's mentioned within Northampton Borough Council, Jerry's team can refer to the Winter Grant, Revs and Bens can refer to the Winter Grant, Northampton Partnership Homes can refer directly, and my team who are doing the community resilience work can also refer directly. Then in addition to that, we've got Citizens Advice and also community law service also signed up, so they can also make direct referrals. So we are sending our fair share of referrals in. Again, I know from speaking to Tyler last week that some of the areas that there wasn't as many referrals coming through. So Wellingboro's looked quite low last week, and I think South Northampton, East Northampton, but Northampton, they weren't concerned in terms of the population figures in comparison to the amount of people that were getting the grant. So we're absolutely getting our fair share, and there are no issues with referrals going through. If you do become aware of any other agencies that may benefit from becoming a direct referrer, they can be set up as a direct referrer. So if there are other community and voluntary organisations that that are working, that would benefit, then let us know and we can set them up as direct referrers. So that funding is there for us to access, and we are accessing it as a borough. So please be reassured around that.
Sorry, thank you. Councillor Duffy, you've got a question.
Thank you. Can I ask, is the, I'm talking about the Health Start voucher scheme, is the telephone number for that scheme, is it a free phone?
I believe it is, Councillor Duffy. I can double check that though and get Tracy to confirm that's part of the minutes, but I believe it is.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. And also, why can't the vouchers be redeemed online? Because with COVID, and I understand it's for women that are pregnant or have young children, it may be difficult to get out to supermarkets.
I believe that they were trying to update that, and I thought it had been updated, Councillor Duffy, but again, can I take that away and get that answer for you? Thank you.
Okay, any more questions?
Councillor Flavel.
Councillor Flavel. Penny.
Thank you very much. Am I? Yeah, okay. It's a question. I don't mind who answers it. It's a very basic question and might make me sound very stupid, but could somebody please tell me what is the difference between hardship and poverty? Where is the line drawn? And how do we as councillors know if one of our constituents matches hardship or poverty? What do we do? Are they the same? I mean, poverty sounds absolutely appalling. Hardship doesn't sound quite so bad. It sounds as though someone could manage. I just wonder how we differentiate between the two. If someone could explain to me.
Thank you, Councillor Flavel. I think at the moment what we need to be looking out for is anybody that is finding it difficult at the moment. So that would be whether they're in hardship or poverty. And I actually would say one leads to the other.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer my question. How do you decide on what is poverty?
I would say and this is me guessing, I'm not quite sure if there is an actual criteria for either of them. So again, I can have a look at that. But I would, with regards to hardship, I think that is somebody who's struggling financially to eat. Poverty would be if they're in arrears and they've got debt. You know, and for me, I think that they're both the same with regards to food poverty, because if somebody's struggling to eat, that's come on the back of hardship. So for me, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has an answer, but you know, for me, I think they for the review that we've done, I feel that the whether they're in hardship or in poverty, I think they're both, for me, they're the same.
Yes, I suppose what I'm wondering is who makes the decision and what is the criteria for somebody in hardship, and what is the criteria for somebody that you decide is in poverty? I don't know. I don't know
criteria.
Decision. I don't know which one of you makes that decision.
Do you want me to answer, Jerry?
So, yes, please.
Yeah. So, yeah, Councillor Fagan. So everything is done through an assessment. So I know some referrals that I sent into Jerry's team myself, and it's very well scrutinised and it's completely fair process. They'll look at everybody's income and outgoings, and it won't necessarily be the standard outgoings. Some people might have loan repayments that they're embarrassed to talk about with somebody else. So it's really, really assessed on a fair basis. And this is why it's so important. We also have community law in there and citizens advice as well, because a lot of people will open up more to those services because they know they're confidential. And that's how the decision is made. So it's all about the incomings, outgoings, people on universal credits, benefits, number of dependents, if somebody's got an illness. It's assessed like that. But I would completely agree with what Jerry just said as well, that hardship does lead to poverty, and they do go hand in hand, unfortunately.
Thank you, Anna. That is exactly what I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Geraldine, for all your support with this report. Thank you. So let's move on to the next one, which is the gangs and knife crime. Again, this is Vicky and Councillor King. To give us an update on the recommendations.
Jamie, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was quite cross with Penny for bringing that subject up. And I'd just like to say, when this COVID is over, I'd like to invite Penny to come round into my ward and to have a look at some of the poverty areas and how people are struggling. If you come to a deprived area where people have not got any food and have to rely on food parcels, then Jamie, you can see where the poverty is.
Dennis, that was not the reason. What I wanted to know was how the officers differentiated between hardship and poverty, and actually now explained it extremely well. That was my question.
It's a very valid question. I'm going to move on. Okay, so let's move on to knife crime.
Jamie, thanks.
It's a very valid question. A very helpful one too, Penny. Thank you. So, gangs and knife crime, Councillor King and Vicky.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we spoke about it quite a bit actually at the last meeting, didn't we? Which wasn't that long ago. So this is just a summary, really, and a further update on everything. I think, Vicky, do you want to give us another summary on it, or do everyone just want to go to questions?
Sorry.
No, over to you, Vicky.
No. I was just going to say, yeah. So just in terms of there was 10 recommendations that come out of the review, and all of those recommendations have either been delivered or are well underway. The detail of that, as Councillor King said, is in the report. So I mean, I'm happy we can go through them, or we can take any questions. I guess I'd just add, which isn't in the report, but I know I said through Tracy late last night to go out to members, so she probably, I don't know whether she's had the chance to send it through yet, probably not, but just there is something coming out to all elected members, which will obviously include yourself, but it's just with regards to free to talk and the trusted relationships work, and the fact that they've been funded for another 12 months, which is in the report, but just some of the outcomes of the work that they've been doing, and just to give you a sense of that. So since October 2020, 336 sessions have been delivered to 62 vulnerable young people, and during the ongoing pandemic, youth workers have interacted with 55 young people over 47 weeks in COVID-safe community settings, such as at school gates and in parks, helping them to understand the importance of social distancing. So whilst we've been in and out of lockdown, whilst we've been through the COVID pandemic, they've still been providing that youth work. And further to that, some of those young people have gone on to become young leaders and are supporting the development of digital youth work, offering gaming, weekly live news stream, and online youth groups, and in January alone they've had over 800 young people engaged with that work, so engaging a significant amount of young people even through the COVID pandemic. So it just kind of shows you the gravity of the work. And I know Councillor Walker has mentioned previously that, you know, the whole review into the gangs and knife crime, the thing that came out the most for him and for the panel was around youth provision and free access to youth services, and youth provision was the key, and something that the panel would like to see going forward. So lots of the recommendations around that, and we've got a really well established youth provider network where we're bringing those partners together. So from the local church group to the Saints Foundation. So anybody that's providing some sort of service for young people, we're bringing together regularly every 6 weeks to try and map the provision that's available across the borough, and also identify any gaps, look at opportunities to put in joint funding applications and funding bids. And as we go forward, that's going to be, you know, even more important. And we're just opening that youth provider network out to become a West group. So we'll continue that work into Unitary. And I do mention at the beginning, which is one of the recommendations around the strategic buy-in to gangs and knife crime and serious organised crime, which includes gangs and knife crime and youth violence, is absolutely one of the priorities of the Community Safety Partnership Plan, which there will eventually be a West plan, and it will also be part of a West Community Safety Partnership Plan as well. It's a strategic priority for the police, and it will be a strategic priority for a West Community Safety Partnership Plan as well. So yeah, I think they're the key points. The rest of the information is in the report, so happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. Any questions to Vicky on the report? Councillor Duffy?
Thank you very much. I was particularly concerned about the delays in the Blackthorn Youth Centre being erected, and the report is very good, and gaps have been recognised, and I'd just like reassurance that planning won't be delayed in erecting these youth centres and the things that you're speaking about, Vicky.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point, isn't it? You know, we do need to make sure that people understand the urgency of these projects. I know the Blackthorn project is well underway. Met with Catherine at the end of last week. So yeah, and Blackthorn's one of our priority areas in terms of the trusted relationships project. So for the young people to have a space that they own, that they feel that's theirs, is really important. Because again, as a borough, and I know we included that not as much in this report, but in the Community Safety Partnership update last time, having youth spaces that young people feel that they own, that they belong to, is really important, and that's what that Blackthorn space is providing, isn't it? So yeah, those spaces are absolutely really important. And I know Anna's mentioned previously, Councillor King, something that she's really pushed is trying to get the youth space in the town centre, and you know, that's well underway. I think they've now agreed, Freeze Talk have now agreed the terms of reference, heads of terms, sorry, with Grosvenor Centre. So yeah, the more spaces and places we've got for young people across the borough, the better.
Thank you. Any further questions to Vicky on the report and recommendations?
Nobody indicating.
Okay, well, thank you once again, Geraldine. Thank you, Vicky, for your support to Overview and Scrutiny over the years. It's been lovely working with you. And thank you, Councillor King, who's always coming along and giving her absolute 100% commitment to the committee, and is always very truthful with your reports and questions and answers. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, then. So moving on to the next.
Chair, could I just very briefly just say one thing? It's not a question. I just also wanted to compliment Vicky, if I could, because not only the knowledge or information base you bring to every single meeting, but also if I ever send you a query or a question, it's answered with full vigour, or you go away and find the answer. So I don't know how much I'll get to work with you in the future. So I wanted to take that opportunity. So well done and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on then to item 8, which is the performance management scrutiny. So we asked for 2 reports from the. One is HML07, which is the number of households prevented in becoming homeless. So I'm going to hand over to Councillor Hibbett and Phil Harris to answer that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Before I pass you on to Phil, I'd just like to remind you that this is only dealing with Q2, and in my report to the recent council meeting, I did emphasise that the good work of the prevention team has continued well into the year, and the figure for prevention is now approaching 600 for the financial year. As I say, the team do extremely good work in working with landlords and with families to make sure that people preserve their accommodation. Perhaps Phil might add to that.
Make sure I'm not on mute. Okay, thank you, Councillor Hibbett. Yeah, so we've seen, as explained in the report, that particular quarter was not necessarily representative of the overall number. During the first 6 months of 2021, there were 32% fewer people actually approached the council for assistance threatened with homelessness. But in spite of that, the number of preventions was only down by 6%. It showed that we were focusing on every opportunity to prevent homelessness during that period. 132 people in that quarter would have become homeless, would have probably been rehoused, but were prevented from becoming homeless. 21 of those were helped into their alternative private rented accommodation, and some agreed to stay with families rather than go into temporary accommodation. So I think the ban on evictions that's been extended until the end of next month has had an impact on it. We're not disguising the fact that there's still problems being stored up. We are making contact with as many of those people as possible through different routes in order to address it. I have explained in previous scrutiny sessions that the council is able to provide financial assistance to help families that have got into arrears through no fault of their own, where a bit of help would prevent the breakdown of that tenancy and at some point in the future lead to their homelessness. So we'd urge all tenants to, or councillors to encourage tenants to make contact as early as possible, even though there is a ban on evictions in place.
Thanks, Phil. Any questions? No, happy with the response. Lovely. Okay. And once again, Councillor Hibbett and Bill, thank you very much for your support to Scrutiny over the years. I think you've attended probably more meetings than some of the members of the committee. So thank you. You seem to be a regular at these things. So thank you very much for your support. Okay, so moving on to the next one, which is ESC01, which is the missed bins collection. So Councillor Hallam and Chris, you're going to take us through this.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Chair. It's really something that I've been saying for a while is what we've been doing. And actually, when you look at these figures on the face of it, they don't look very good, but put into the context of other councils around us and what we've been doing during this COVID period, they're actually really good. So the reason why the missed bins have got worse is obviously purely because of the COVID-19 factor. And if you drill down into the data, it's really food collections that have been disrupted. Now, actually, it's kind of a good news story in that we deliberately took the decision early on that if anything would be disrupted, it would be food waste. Now, the challenge is not really in terms of operatives, the challenge is in terms of drivers, because obviously if you're driving a waste vehicle, you need to be of a certain qualification. So there's obviously a limited number of those and you can't get somebody to stand in. So we took the decision early that we would juggle everything around and the food would take the impact of any missed bins, really, which is why they're occurring. A couple of reasons for that. The take up on food isn't as great as other areas, and obviously you have got the alternative of we wouldn't overly promote this, but not recycling it and putting it into the black bin collection just to get rid of it effectively during these difficult times. So what's kind of happened really was in the first lockdown, it wasn't really an issue for us because what the contractor did was they supplemented resources from their commercial waste contractors, from their commercial waste contracts. So if you remember in the first lockdown, lots and lots of businesses closed completely, a lot more than have done at the moment. And then moving forward to lockdown 2 in November, that's where we hit the problems, is that we didn't more business are open in lockdown 2 than actually are open at the moment. So we hit a real bit of a fork in the road there in that we couldn't borrow those drivers and juggle the service in terms of from their commercial waste contracts. Now moving on to lockdown 3, whilst we've still had a few issues in terms of food waste, it's not been as bad as lockdown 2. We've put in place some rules that we won't, if we have to bump around, we'll try not to bump the same round 2 weeks in a row and various things around that. And actually, first of all, we got a lot of criticism on social media for this, and I kind of took my bit between the teeth and went out there and started to talk to people on social media about what the issue was. And when you explained it to people that actually we were staggering the service around, we were doing it so these people could self-isolate and that our staff were protected, actually people were really understanding. It's just that by that stage, by lockdown 2, they'd kind of some people had forgotten the reasons behind it. We needed to remind people, and when we did, actually people are really relaxed about it and think it's the right thing. And actually when I was pushed in one instance on social media, I said flip the scenario round and think about the criticism that I and the council would come in for if some waste operatives had been out all day long, touched thousands of bins and had tested positive for COVID-19. Rightly, people would be calling for me to resign. That's actually not happened at all. So we've had some limited disruption, but actually in terms of protecting our staff, which is was our number one aim in this, that's been achieved. And like I say, this time round, obviously the figures include some of that period when we really did have some issues with the food waste. Now coming out into lockdown 3, we've got a bit better handle on things, and that would show in the numbers in the weeks and months to come.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to
Councillor Smith?
Councillor Smith, then Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Chair. Understand the reasons behind the way that bins have been missed and the logic behind it. I think we can see the sense of that. What I'm wondering is about how much notice councillors can be given if, knowing that there's a certain degree of forethought gone into it, how much notification we can have as councillors. it's not a criticism of a huge scale in the circumstances, but I tend to find that notifications received about when bins are likely to be missed are fairly short notice, or short sort of not long before the time when they are missed, and it makes it difficult to say get that message out to some of my residents groups or people I know would be concerned about it. If there was a way that councillors could have a sense of what was coming up and what might be missed, it would allow our communication with residents to be a little bit more smooth and just give them the heads up that this might be happening and be able to get the message out.
Yeah, I take that point completely. Unfortunately, it comes down to the fact of who turns up, or in this case, doesn't turn up at the yard in the morning. So if somebody self-isolates and throws things out, it means we have to move very, very quickly on the ground to do it. So often unfortunately, we can't give that notice that we need to. But like I say, this time around, we do seem to have a bit better handle on things. And hopefully, obviously, in the next few weeks, the national lockdown will start to be eased.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Hello. I'd just like to I appreciate the difficulties that COVID has brought to the food collections, and I'm so happy that things have been improved. Sorry, in that regard. But also, there's a national increase in the rat population. I have said to Chris Carvell that perhaps the Eurobin areas could be sprayed for anti-vermin, and I'm yet to hear from him. And I wondered, Mike, if you could chase him up, or what your thoughts on spraying Eurobin areas against vermin would
Sure,
be.
he's actually on the call. He's actually on leave this week and has come on the call anyway, because I'm running very hard. So Chris, would you like to comment on that on the call?
Yes, thank you for that. Councillor Duffy, yes, I did get your comments a week ago, so I did respond. One of the big things that I'm trying to liaise with colleagues in MPH regarding a lot of the communal areas. I think that's going to be the easiest quick win, because obviously they manage a lot of these communal bin areas. So I'm corresponding with my opposite number, Philip, in MPH, to try and see how we can actually do that practically and operationally. One of the problems that we do get, as you know, is the bin collection areas in the other non-communal bin areas. But I'm also talking to colleagues in the Warden team around trying to do something around that as well, to deter the rodents.
Can I just ask a supplementary?
You may.
Thanks for that, Chris. I mean, the rats are also going up into the roofs of blocks of flats. They've got a nice little food source there, haven't they? And then they can, go into the roofs and start breeding. So it really is important, this factor. It's been in the national press, and it's an urgent thing that needs looking at most seriously. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Just to add, Chair, we'll certainly include it in our handover discussions with WNC.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions to Councillor Hallam on that report? No?
Nobody's indicating, Chair.
Okay. And likewise, Mike and Chris, thank you for your support with Overview and Scrutiny over the years. Again, you've been most welcome to these meetings. You come along and you tell us as it is. You're very truthful, honest and open. So thank you very much for your support. Lovely, thank you.
Our pleasure, Chair.
Okay then, so the next item, item 9, potential future pre-decision scrutiny. I know of nothing that we can scrutinise. So moving on to item 10, which are urgent items. There's just one thing I'd like to mention at this part is around outstanding recommendations on our scrutiny reports. They will be sent to the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee at West Northants Council, and they will then take it on board to make sure that all our recommendations are made and delivered on as we enter the new unitary council. I would like to take this opportunity also to thank you all for your hard work and support in overview and scrutiny. You've all given it your 100%, and that is what I absolutely love about scrutiny. Scrutiny works best when you bring your passions to it, and I know at times I have had to tell you off about being over passionate, especially when it's matters dear to your heart. But we've done some great work. You only have to look back on the Northampton Borough Council's overview and scrutiny website of that part, section 10, and see the library of all the reports we've done over the years. And I've been involved with overview scrutiny now for 17, 18 years. And all that time, Trace has been with me, and I'd like to thank her publicly for all her support and hard work over the years. I'm sure the whole committee will echo those feelings and thoughts. So,
I feel it's unfortunate I need to follow that, because I did actually indicate to speak at the pre-decision agenda item. I want to make a point in respect of Northampton Forward to express my disappointment, and I've already expressed this personally to the leader of the council anyway, expressed my disappointment that a further plan has been submitted from Northampton Forward that not only didn't get any scrutiny from this committee, didn't get any scrutiny from full council, didn't get any scrutiny from cabinet, didn't get any scrutiny from the cross-party working group. And unfortunately, that entity has turned into exactly what I described it as 18 months ago, which is a quango. And I think it's unfortunate that at the last meeting of this committee, we couldn't have had any information where we could have a look at any plans before they're submitted. It seems now that the people that are responsible for this town are no longer being given the democratic oversight that they should. And I'm sorry to end on a dour note, but I thought that we were given reassurances that there'd be a regular agenda item, that this committee would be kept up to speed with how things are progressing.
thank you for your comments, and I'm sure you can bring that up at next week's council meeting also. Okay, so on that note, I'd like to close the meeting and wish you all well, and I hope to see you all in person at some point soon. Thank you very much.